You're listening to episode 126, When a Child is Put on Hospice, How Child Life Specialists Can Help. Hello, my friends. It is Katie here. I am your host of the Child Life On Call podcast. It's come to my attention that we have some new listeners. And y'all, I used to have this beautiful intro that I loved when the podcast first started back in what year was that? It was 2017. Oh my gosh, that's so nuts. And what it did, it just introduced everybody to the podcast and talked about the impact that having a sick, ill, injured, or diagnosed child can have on parents. And so if you're joining us for the first time, I'm very glad that you're here. I am Katie, a child life specialist, and what that means is we help kids and families cope in the hospital. So, or with different transitions and grief and bereavement, and as you'll hear today, how we help support children in hospice care and siblings of children who are in hospice care. So it is officially June 29th today, and the reason that that's important for us to talk about is for the first time in I think 2.5 years, we are not going to be having new weekly episodes of the podcast, only for 1 month. So for the month of July, we're going to take a little bit of a break from new episodes, but you will still get to hear some of our most listened to and downloaded episodes each week. So if you have not been listening for forever, you have a chance to actually listen to some of the parent stories and expert talks that have really just had a big impact on this podcast. In other fun housekeeping development here at Child Life On Call, we are starting a live free Zoom call for parents to get child life support every Monday at 10 a.m. Central Time on Zoom. So parents, if you have questions, if you have a child surgery coming up, if you are wondering how to help your child cope with something specific like the upcoming COVID vaccine, that's now available for kids 6 months and older, please come join us on Monday and ask your questions live to a child life specialist. It will either be me or another certified child life specialist, but you are definitely going to get the answers that you need, and it's completely free. So go to childlifeoncall.com, click on parents, and you can sign up directly there or in our Instagram bio. But anyway, we are just so excited to see you every Monday. And as a little bonus, you are going to leave that meeting with the Child Life On Call app that is downloaded to your phone. So you'll get to leave with Child Life in your pocket, which is pretty exciting. And for the child life specialists who listen to this too, we have not forgotten about you too. We are setting up demos of the Child Life On Call app to different health systems around the country. So no matter how big, how small, how well funded, how struggling, one-person program, surgery centers, we're just excited to share the new technology with you. So if you go to childlifeoncall.com, click on Child Life Specialists or Facilities, you can actually schedule a demo right there, and we will meet you and your team and whoever you want to invite to that team meeting, including the director or manager, your supervisor of child life services, so we can really demonstrate how this can help support your team. I think what's been most exciting for us as we're learning about how the app is actually being used is we're really seeing parents feel empowered, and we're seeing reported less burnout from child life specialists who are feeling overextended. I think one of the really good examples that we're seeing are those night shift kiddos who come in and there's no access to child life available, and they still want to give parents information. And so that way, when child life specialists are coming in the next day, they know parents have some understanding of what has happened overnight, and they've been a little bit supported. And then child life specialists get to do and work on really quality interventions rather than damage control. One of the other things we're hearing from facilities is that they really want this app to be customized to their hospital. And that's exactly what it does. We basically have the template, we have the footprint, and then it belongs to you. So it looks like your app, it has your pictures. The Child Life Services team can put up their own resources on there. And so it's basically an extension of your hospital, your child life team. We just have the technology behind it to support you. So, are y'all tired of listening to me talk? Probably yes. Let's go ahead and get to my not so 12-minute, more 20-minute conversation with Shani. Hello, my friends. This is an honor because we have now the third time. You've been the most frequent guest in the history of Child Life on Call.
Wow.
I have Miss Shani Thornton from Child Life Mommy here with us again. Shani, you want to say hello to everybody?
Like a frequent flyer.
You
Hello. So excited.
Yes. Well, I had to bring her back because she is so smart and such a good friend and says yes when she knows I really need something. And that is loyal. And I love that. Full disclosure, you guys, I have never gotten this close to a podcast publish date. And we are, under 36 hours out from when this needs to go live. So Shani, thank you for being the best.
Oh, you're all good. You can do it.
So I wanted to bring her on because Shani, as some of you may or may not know, has a business, a private practice called Child Life Mommy, and she does workshops and seminars, and she does private practice child life, where she does both telehealth and goes into children and families' homes to support them through child life interventions. And she is one of the leaders in our field, or probably the biggest leader in our field when it comes to private practice. So the fact that we're getting to hear from her today is really exciting. But we wanted to focus on some of her clients that she's been working with recently in the hospice space. So, Shani, could you talk with us a little bit about how you found yourself getting into the hospice space and how families go about getting referral to meet with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually contract with a local hospice agency here, and it's taken a little time, but over the last couple of years, they're finally understanding my role. And so I'm officially getting clients that are children of adult patients, but they also see a very small peds population. So I'll get referrals to work with their pediatric patients and the siblings involved. And then just as the practice has grown within our community, I've received private referrals to work with children who are now on hospice.
Okay, so kind of twofold, both like private referrals and then from the actual agency.
Correct.
And so is the agency like talking about your services? So I'm just thinking about parents. How do they even know that someone like you exists and is available?
So typically from the hospice agency, it's from like social work and the chaplains or their team manager, like the nurse team manager. So they'll say, and especially as soon as they have a pediatric patient on, they're like, oh, we need to get child life services implemented right away. So they'll talk about my service and they'll talk about how I come in and work with the families to help them cope with what's happening, to provide some education, therapeutic outlets of play and expression, and then teaching them coping skills and like memory making and all.
Gotcha.
So that's through the hospice.
And I guess it's important to note that you're in Northern California and that's kind of the community that you're serving right now. Okay.
Yeah.
So, gosh, I know people probably say this all the time, but I'm sure it's very emotionally draining, having a lot or juggling end of life cases. But I know that you're doing a lot of amazing work with these families. So can you talk with us a little bit about some of the interventions you do and the differences in caring for, supporting siblings of a patient who's at this phase of their treatment?
Yeah, absolutely. So usually it starts with the caregivers, right? So I'm talking with them, finding out what their child with the diagnosis knows, what the siblings know, what information they've shared already, what words they're using, and then just checking in on like what their behavior has been, right? Like emotionally, how are they coping? And then I provide them with some information on the importance of being honest and using the words of, terminal prognosis sounds so formal, but saying that, that the illness has progressed and that there's no more treatment. There's no medicine that's going to make it go away anymore. And so over time, their body's going to slowly shut down. It's going to stop working. And then we use the words, death and dying, and trying to just getting them comfortable. And I explain like, this is not a one-time conversation you're going to have with your kids. This is over time. And it's also, following your kid's lead, right? Like we know how important that is as child life specialists. As soon as you start talking to a child about these heavy discussions, you need to follow their body language and their eye contact and given some items to kind of fidget with and play with. But if they're all of a sudden like, okay, I'm going to go play on the iPad, then you let them run off and go play on the iPad.
Yeah.
You don't chase them down and say, no, I need to keep giving you more information
about this right now. Yeah.
So those are kind of like the basic tips of just giving some information.
It kind of on a like totally separate, I guess, scenario, but I was talking with my son about the school shooting in Uvalde, and it was the right time for us to talk. And he actually digested the information really well. The next day, he had almost no recollection of the conversation. And until I brought it up, I had to say 2 or 3 things about something we talked about. And that was just so clear to me that we talked about it. And then it went into this part of his brain that he's not ready to come back to yet. And so it's there and I'll be here, during that discussion. But it was just such, like such a objective way to say, like, sometimes they're going to digest hard information and not be able to talk about it after.
Absolutely. They're compartmentalizing it, right?
Exactly.
Like that's a coping skill. So it's important I think just to start there though, is just to let them know that there's a way to have the conversation and the importance of being honest and following your child's lead.
We'll be right back. If you have ever wondered where you could get those cloth dolls that child life specialists use with kids for medical education or sending home to siblings or to draw on for therapeutic activities, then you don't have to wonder any longer because our friends at Smile Makers have decided to now sell these amazing cloth dolls for a very affordable price. I know that when I was in the hospital, I would have to rely on a volunteer network to then give us the dolls, which was really nice, but I had to wait a lot of times. Like I would need a doll now and I wasn't able to get it. So this is a great place to be able to go get your procedure dolls at smilemakers.com. And y'all, they have 3 different skin tones for these cloth procedure dolls. In addition, you can actually buy a procedure doll prep bundle that comes with fabric markers. This is a fabulous way to do your medical teaching, to help siblings feel involved, to get kids creative, to do a lot of teaching about different diagnoses. And so go to smilemakers.com so you can get your cloth dolls as soon as possible before they run out. And when you go to that checkout to get your cloth dolls, also type in OnCall20 and you will get 20% off your entire order. So not just the cloth dolls. So if you get a bundle for Child Life Specialists, if you get a piece of furniture, if you get one of their really cool toys and prizes, or you order a large sticker order from them, OnCall20 gets you 20% off your whole order. That's smilemakers.com, code OnCall20 to get 20% off. Yeah, I want to go back a little bit to this difference in medication, right? Because likely in a lot of these scenarios, you're working with kids who have had chronic or long-term illnesses. So they've been getting medicine and now all of a sudden, like you said, they're still getting medicine. So how do we explain that to siblings and that it's different than the medicine they were getting before?
Yeah. So that goes back to the basics of like education on how the body works, what the illness is, where it's affecting and impacting the body. Just talking about that. So such as like if it's cancer and it's cancer in the brain, right? We talk about how the brain works, how you have your brain, your heart, and your lungs. And then you talk about cancer and what the cancer cells are. You talk about the different types of treatments, such as, chemo, radiation, and surgery. And that now this is a different type of medication, right? Like this medication's not making cancer cells go away. It's not going to make the illness, make them feel better, right? In the sense of making it go away so that they're stay alive. The medicine they're now receiving is going to be medication that's going to give them pain relief, right? It's going to make them so they're not uncomfortable, that they have pain management. And so then you talk about how that will also be affected and how that might change the child's body. They might be much more sleepy. They might be a little bit agitated in the beginning because it does take some time to kind of fluctuate and find the right pain med. You'll talk about how they'll receive the medication. And also talking about like the different behaviors around, right? Like different nursing coming in to administer, or maybe it's the caregivers that are administering it. But usually in the beginning, it's kind of that crisis mode of like, what do? We just have this diagnosis that it's, terminal now. How do we treat this? Or how do we make their child comfortable? So it's a little bit of like just a little bit chaotic in the beginning. So you talk about that and those sensations and feelings, and then how slowly there's different ways to kind of cope and adapt with it. But the medication part is really important. And it's usually a conversation I have multiple times and multiple sessions.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? That it's not kind of just the sit down, tell them, and then everybody understands what's happening. I mean, even as an adult, it's hard to really comprehend a lot of the concepts around hospice care and treatment and all of that. But so I know that you do more than talking. What are some of the interventions you do with kids to help them really understand some of these complex topics?
So, for example, I have a family right now where there's a adolescent who's terminal with cancer, and then she has a school age brother. So when I first met them, her brother didn't even understand what cancer was. So we talked about that. We clear up a lot of misconceptions on that. And I used models of like body books. I used Play-Doh. I used Legos. I used Mighty and Bright's book, right? On someone I love has cancer.
Shout out.
I know. Shout out, Sarah.
She's the best.
She is. But it's got great images in there too. And then medical play, right? Talking about that using chemo duck and talking about the port, talking about cancer, clearing up misconceptions because they thought it was contagious. And then talking about the different types of treatment his sister went through. And then talking about how those treatments, she's not getting any more treatments to make the cancer go away. And I gave him like a gingerbread like template. And so I had him show me on there, drawing a picture where her cancer is. And hers is very visual. She has a very large mass on her face. The tumor is incredibly large and it's growing rapidly. So he drew right on this image of where the cancer was. And I talked about how sometimes you can see the cancer on the outside, but oftentimes the cancer's on the inside of our body too, that we can't see. And we talked about how it multiplies, right? And so using the Legos and building them up and how quickly they grow as the cancer cells. I've also implemented books. So Moving In Together, Rebecca Wu's book, that's phenomenal. It's about a loved one having an illness, moving in with the family, and it's terminal, and then they die. But it's very kind of open about the type of illness. So I read that book to him. And then we had open dialogue about, what do you think is happening? What are you seeing from your mom's reactions? What do you, and kind of just going there, and he'll express it verbally, but he'll also draw pictures. And so those are the different types of interventions. So it's play, it's art, it's books. And you can tell when he's like, okay, this is too heavy. I'm going to go play with the puppies over here now. I'm like, all right, let's go over and play with the puppies and, kick the soccer ball. And, it's just it's a constant evolving conversation, but he knows the space I provide him is very safe, and I validate everything. And I just want him to feel secure and witnessed, so he can work through it. In fact, our last session, we've moved on. We've had like 4 sessions, and I did handprint molds, right? So we did fingerprint charms with Mono Magic. And I talked about how he could create something and he can get his sister's handprint. It's something that he'll always have. He created it, ran inside, put her fingerprint on it, came out, was like, can we put it on a necklace? And I was like, yes. Then he saw my beads and he's like, I want to make a bracelet for every family member. Great. He did that. He went and ran inside, found everybody's favorite colors. Like, so he had this sense of control and he was creating something. And then from that activity, we did a huge canvas handprint of like a tree, and each family member painted their hand with their color choice and put it on the tree. It was one of the most beautiful memory making canvas handprints I have ever done. It was phenomenal. But that was, I mean, this is school age kid. We've done a lot of interventions, and he's at a place now where he really understands what's happening.
That's the part that I'm just like, he started when you first met him, not knowing or thinking that cancer was contagious. Right.
Yeah.
And now he's come so far, and just 4 sessions with you, that I'm sure you took really slowly, but you're so thoughtful and in your interventions. And what kind of follow-up do you do with parents after an intervention like that? Is it right after and you kind of keep them in the loop, or what does that look like?
It depends. So sometimes it's a conversation that we have privately, where the kids are not around and we just kind of go through it. And oftentimes, honestly, it's just giving a space for the parents to vent. Like, the fact that they're watching their child die is horrendous. I mean, it's awful. And so if we can create a space where we're just, you're witnessing them, you're validating them, and you're listening. Like, I'm not going to problem solve it for them. I cannot fix it. Right. And I'm also not going to try to make it better. Literally, they're sitting in this chunky mess, and I'm sitting right next to them in the chunky mess.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it is. But we talk about the coping skills of like how their child who does have the illness, how the siblings are doing, how they're doing, and kind of just meeting everybody where they're at.
Kind of circling back, just unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of time. We're trying to do this as fast as we can so everybody can listen. But thinking about going back to the hospice company that you're working for, do you report back to them, or do you have an open dialogue about your clients so they're getting the information too? And if there's a social work referral that you want to make, or any important information for them, how does that communication work?
It's just like in the hospital. So
Okay.
I communicate very closely when it's a patient that's still alive. There's more communication with the social worker. And so I've done that. I'm like, this family, I mean, yeah, my support's great, but I'm like, we need some mental health providers in place right now.
Yeah.
Can we get this ball going? And they do. There's this dialogue back and forth of how we can support each other. The nurse manager is involved. The nurse who's overseeing them, the CNAs who come in are involved. The chaplains are involved. Even for this case, because it's pediatrics, the doctor is involved. So like, I will write up a report of what my interventions are. I'll put it in a document that is from the hospice agency, email it out to them. And I also will, give them a blurb of like, I don't want you just like to see the document and just like put it to the side. Like, I want you to hear like what we did. So let me give you a snippet and you can read more in the document. And even for this case, like I attached the canvas, like I wanted them to see.
Yeah.
And they were just like, wow, like on both ends. So one, they're like, oh, this is amazing. We really understand what child life does now, right? It gives them a kind of like an openness, awareness of like, I had no idea. I thought you just did, bereavement work. And I'm like, no, so much more than that. And then also like, what are additional ways that we can support this family? So I've connected this particular family with several nonprofits, and I'm offering that information to this, the hospice agency of like, there's these agencies out here that are supporting these families. Let's connect with them.
Yeah.
So there is an open, dialogue back and forth, and conversations on the phone too with them. So
yeah. Well, you're doing amazing work and you're really paving the way for Child Life to come in and support more families at such an important time. So thank you for all you do.
Oh, absolutely. It's an absolute honor to be able to come into a family's home during these times. And every single one of them, we will continue to learn and grow from them because they are absolutely amazing souls.
Absolutely. Well, for parents listening, we hope you are never in this situation, but if you do know someone who is going through that, there are people like Shani who are around, and you can always connect with us and we can try to get you to resources. And for Child Life Specialists, I hope that this is inspiring for you to learn about how services can be implemented outside of the hospital setting and really be so impactful. So thank you so much for Shani for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Shani, for taking time out of your very busy schedule to come and hang out with us and teach us and just guide us in supporting and loving on our own family and the families that we serve. So, y'all, I had enough to say at the beginning of this episode. Just know that I'm grateful that you're here. I hope you enjoy a little bit of the month of July and you enjoy the reposts that we have coming for you next week. I'm really excited about. And we will meet you back with new episodes starting Wednesday, August 3rd.